I'm Kirsten Flory, and I'm the board chair of the Lawrence Chamber of Commerce, and it's great to see all of your faces. I first and foremost want to thank our sponsors, which is Cherry Hill Properties and Intrust Bank, and if you could please join me in thanking them for their support this morning. Your involvement in this process is important, and I'm a firm believer that if something is important to you, you show up. You show up to listen, to learn, and to support those issues that are important to you. But talk is cheap. The real action comes when the vote happens. Not just at the polls in November, but also at city commission meetings. Your presence and your voice do make a difference. The Lawrence Chamber's strategic initiatives lie in our ability to engage, to educate, advocate for, and communicate with our members and the community to create pathways to success. The definition of what success looks like has changed over time as our needs and interests have evolved. The Lawrence Chamber's focus on economic development for our member businesses and the community as a whole encompass more than just job creation and capital investment. It has to do with creating partnerships with city leaders to make a plan for investment that create opportunities for an increased tax base, infrastructure expansion, and an open line of communication and support for new and existing businesses to thrive. It's about creating a culture that has the mission of, we are open for business, and we're glad that you're here. Economic development also has to do with equity, opening up the barriers that exist for our BIPOC and women-owned businesses to grow. Some of these areas include providing startup capital, childcare solutions, educational opportunities, and access to transportation. Economic development also includes quality of life. How do we continue to develop and support our downtown while embracing the need for expanded city limits? How also do we create recreational, arts, and experience-driven activities that promote tourism and engagement? And also, how do we continue to partner with our university systems to make sure that we are supporting growth and innovation? We all have a reason why we live, work, and raise our families here. We have a passion for Lawrence, Kansas, and that is unmatched in many parts of the country. I encourage all of you to turn those reasons and that passion into something that matters and something that counts. I want to thank our City Commission candidates that are here with us today, as well as other elected officials in the room for your participation. I now want to introduce Hugh Carter, Vice President of External Affairs for the Lawrence Chamber, who will facilitate our candidate forum. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. Try this. Thank you, Kirsten. As I get started, I want to invite our candidates to come on up to the stage and take your assigned seat there. And while you do that, I want to echo Kirsten's sentiment and say thank you very much for being willing to throw your hats in the ring. We do have Makotwa Jones is en route, and we estimate that she will be here in time for her opening remarks, but we do need to get things going. She had a scheduling mix-up. We're also missing Stuart Boley this morning. He had a previous commitment. I understand he's on the radio with Hank Booth right now, so I don't know if Hank was just that solid on the date or what. But anyway, Stuart is not with us this morning. You're in the home stretch. I understand that this is it. This is the last City Commission forum before the election, so I'm sure you're as excited as I am for about 9:30, 9:45 this morning. Have this one behind you, and you're ready to go to the polls. So each of you received your rules for today's forum in advance, but I'll do a quick review for you and for the benefit of the audience. Each candidate will have 1 minute for opening remarks and 1 minute for closing remarks. You'll have 90 seconds to answer each question. Julie Hack is our timekeeper, and she is stage left right here. Julie, raise your hand. So she will give you the signals at 30 and at 15 seconds, and then a bell will ring at 90, and we'll move on to the next question. We will rotate the order of the candidate responses between each question, and there won't be any rebuttals, so just focus on the answer. We have a mic at each table. Please hold that mic or pull it to you. These work when it's about a few inches from your mouth, so please be sure and do that. We're recording today, and it won't pick up unless you're speaking into the mic. We do hope to get to an audience question or two at the end as well, so at each table there are some index cards and a couple of pens. I'd ask you to please jot down any questions you'd recommend. And Paul Davis is this year's chair of our Government and Community Affairs Committee. He's going to gather those questions for us, and we'll pull a couple of those at the end as well. So with that, unless there are questions, let's begin. With opening remarks, we will start here at the front with Amber Sellers.
Can you hear me? Yes. I do apologize. I'm a little bit froggy. Allergies have gotten the best of me. But good morning, everyone. And thank you to the Chamber for hosting this morning's breakfast and forum. My name is Amber Sellers. I am a lifelong Kansan and individual of service to my community. I came to Lawrence first as a freshman in '99, left, then came back in 2019 when I took a position with the state. In my day job, I serve as a research analyst and someone who does work in public policy and regulation. And so my work in public health and public policy through the arc of my career have brought me to the job I have now with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment. And it's through that work, connecting families with resources and connecting families, and educating them, and empowering them, and emboldening them to engage with their elected officials and resources that brings me here today with the desire to serve as your next city commissioner. I believe that background that I have in support of my community, in support of educating and uplifting my community is someone I think suits me quite well for the position. My work in dealing with the legislation, not only do I understand what happens in Topeka, but I also know how it impacts us here in our local community. And so understanding those relationships, the legislation and policy are things that I do in my professional life, and I would like to bring it to my community and my family here in Lawrence to serve as your next city commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Bart Littlejohn.
Hello, everyone. Bart Littlejohn, and thank you all for coming, and thank you all for having us, and looking forward to this conversation. Came to Lawrence about 25 years ago. I had to go to University of Kansas and was just one of those that just never really left. Loved it here and have done everything since then to go ahead and contribute as much as I can to this community. One of the ways I work is by bringing together as many people as possible so we can work as hard as possible to, put our efforts toward goals like equity, housing, and economic development. And when I speak of equity, I do speak of making sure everyone has access to maintain their health, everyone has access to quality, healthy foods, and everyone has access to a safe, sustainable place to live. And when I talk of housing, I'm talking about availability, accessibility, and affordability that will help us with attainability for housing. And when I talk about economic development, I'm talking about economic development for all of us, because I think we tend to not always look at people that work here every day sometimes and that contribute here, have kids that live here, go to school here, pay their taxes here, and I want to make sure that they're part of the solution as well as our small businesses, because I think they make our towns. So I always believe that Lawrence is always great when it works for everyone. So, thank you all.
Thank you. Lisa Larsen.
Yeah, I'll just stay. Hello, can you hear me? Hey, good morning, and I want to thank the Chamber also for putting this on, as well as everybody for being here, and for the candidates for going through this last forum. It's going to be nice to be over, that's for sure. So I'm Lisa Larsen, and I'm one of those two-timers for Lawrence. I was here in the 1980s for several years, and then I left and came back in 2000, so I've been here since then. So I'm a current city commissioner, and I've been on the commission for 6 years. I'm a former mayor. I'm a licensed environmental geologist, And I started my career, my early career was with the state of Kansas Department of Health and Environment, as a regulator. And like I said, in 1992, I started a business, environmental consulting firm, and I sold it in 2014. And finally, one of my more recent endeavors is I became a certified mediator about 5 or 6 years ago. And I've been working with community members since then to kind of find resolutions to the issues that they face every day.
Thank you, Lisa. Mako Jones.
Bonjour, my name is Mako Jones. I'm a citizen of the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation. I moved here in 2009 to start my education at Haskell Indian Nations University. My family and we left. I went to Dartmouth College and then Vermont Law School, where I got a Master's of Environmental Law and Policy. Came back in 2015, and we consider this our home now. I'm a mother of 5 children, raising my children here in Lawrence. I started working at my job at the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation. I worked on water quality issues for tribes, and we worked with the state of Kansas. I've had a passion for a long time about the environment and environmental concerns. That's where I started my work, started my research, started my work. I chair the Sustainability Advisory Board. I started running for City Commission because I think that there's a lot of things that we need to work on in the City of Lawrence. I think we need more advocacy for battered women. I think that we need to focus more on the sustainability of our environment, and I think that Lawrence has the ability to be a leader in sustainability in Kansas. Our environment affects so much of our lives that we don't even realize it. And when we have a better environment, then we have a better community, a healthier community for everybody. And I wholeheartedly believe that. Thank you guys for coming. Thanks for your chamber. Sorry I'm running on Indian time, but I'm here. That's all that matters. And good morning, everybody.
Thank you. And finally, Milton Scott.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks again to the Chamber for having us here today. I have an opportunity to been in Lawrence for 41 years, and I came here in 1980. I grew up in East St. Louis, Illinois, in a high-poverty area, and I was able to come to Lawrence and receive my master's degree, and then I became part of the middle class in my adopted home of Lawrence. I spent over 20 years in affordable housing area, and I think that would be an asset to the community to help bring along affordable housing and issues related to that. I know those issues locally and nationally and the history, so I think that would be a benefit for our community. Also, I'm concerned about the high rental market and the high utility rates that affect our low-income and moderate-income individuals, that we need to be looking at how we can assist them, or in my case, I would like to freeze the utility rates until we get a handle on that. Right now, there's about 3,500 individuals who are behind on utility rates, so we're very concerned about that. But I also want to look at how we can develop affordable housing and looking at different, as Amber used to say, as I said at other areas, ramps of individuals being able to get in and out of the system to afford the rental market and housing market in the community. So those are the things that I'm looking at, and there are areas that I'm concerned about, and there are other areas, but I'm looking at doing this because I feel that I can contribute to the community from years of experience of partnership with others. And I want to continue to do that. So I'm looking to seek one of the positions for a city commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Now we'll start with our first question. We're going to start here on this end with Amber and work our way down. Lawrence has a serious shortage of buildable lots. What roles should the City Commission play in the effort to increase the inventory of buildable lots to meet the demand for all housing types? 90 seconds.
The role of the City Commission is in partnership or in concert with our planning and development. I know that we've seen this past cycle, or at least this past year, work around in regards to infill and density and our codes and whatnot. We just seen this with our last city commission meeting yesterday in regards to discussions of of the RSO zoning and what that looks like and the interpretation of that. And so I think one of the ways that the City Commission can serve in that role as policy leaders is to ensure that our planning and development and the codes that impact our ability to provide housing or development in that capacity, that we are understanding what those codes are in the interpretation. Oftentimes when we don't regularly review our planning and development codes in regards to context and intent, we lose that. And then yes, last night was a case of that, where things come to pass and we feel that we understand what the codes are, but we actually don't. And so I think this is an opportunity for us from a systems perspective to truly understand the intent, the context and the intent of our codes and that interpretation, and to review that. That's the only way we'll be able to be in concert and understand what we're supposed to do in order to drive zoning development that could lead to economic development.
Thank you. Bart?
Well, I probably see the city commissioner's role as to go ahead and empower folks and to start and enable those conversations. As Amber said, we probably need to go ahead and also with conversations with Jeff Craig as well. We need to go ahead and address our code and revisit it, because right now it's a little bit too cumbersome. I know I've talked to other small business owners and they have to hire attorneys to go ahead and decipher what exactly they can do and can't do with code. And I'd hate for it to come to that point. I wanted the code to be decipherable by anybody if at all possible, but to be easily navigated. So, but that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is we have to decide exactly where our priorities are. I mean, we've got some serious problems ahead of us, and I think we're going to need to go ahead and figure out ways for infill and also annexation as well, and how those can play with each other, and also couple that with hopefully we can get some private and nonprofit development going, and so we could have some sort of mixed-use housing. And I think that will all lead to buildable lots, and that will all lead to some sort of solutions that can help us all.
Thank you. Lisa Larsen?
Thank you. So, it's loud. Sorry about that. I'll bring it back.
Do you like it loud?
Do you like it loud? I like it loud. Okay, sorry. And so the idea of buildable lots, I think that's an important key word that we need to remember, is what's buildable. I know that the city staff comes out with a list, I don't know if it's yearly or whatever, of lots available in Lawrence. And there's a lot of discrepancy as to what's actually buildable on those, if they're buildable. So, I do believe that we need to continue to work on infill. It's really important to get that density, but then we also, and I've made it very clear, I think at city commission meetings, that it's extremely important at this time that we look at annexation and that we look to get property within that tier 2 area, which is what the focus is right now. And we also need, when we annex that, we need to make sure it has the density available, that the tax base is there to pay for the infrastructure that is needed in order to serve that. Because it's not just pipes and streets, it's police, fire, and all those safety issues. So that's my focus. We really need to consider annexing. We need to annex to get some of those bulk lots to build on.
Thank you. Mako.
I think it's a very good time to relook at our codes. I agree with the other commissioner candidates. We know what the problems are in Lawrence now. We know we have issues of homelessness. We know we have issues with affordable housing. We know that what kind of codes that we want to see. We want to see more sustainable codes. That's what we're fighting for on Sustainability Advisory Board. So it is an excellent time to relook at our codes and our zoning and look at these buildable lots, like Lisa mentioned, for mixed-use development. Now is a great time to start building and rectifying some of the problems we have in Lawrence, having some low-income housing mixed with more middle-income housing, having housing developments used for low-income families. These are ways that we can mitigate some of the problems that we're facing now. I believe that infill is important. We would all love to see a really nice, thriving downtown Lawrence, and not a lot of open spaces, but annexation too. But I really, really want to push any building development to have our healthy environment in mind. When we talk about utility rates, we're talking directly about utility rates, and we're saying environmental sustainability. The more that we tackle our energy problems, the lower the rates are going to be for citizens of Lawrence. And these are things that I have in mind.
Thank you, Milton Scott.
Lawrence did a housing study in 2018, and it spoke to that particular issue as well as our 2040 plan. I think what we need to do as commissioners is have that vision and strategy and make it public for individuals and bring individuals and partners to the table and look at public-private opportunities. One of the things I would definitely consider doing is making sure that we look at the environmental and making sure we have enough green space and open space and maybe build it up instead of out. So those are things that I would definitely look at.
Thank you. Next question. Again, 90 seconds. We'll start with Bart Littlejohn this time. What is something that you liked and something that you disliked or that you think is missing from the recently developed Downtown Lawrence plan, and why? 90 seconds.
Well, it's I really like the concentration on code development and revisiting that from the Downtown Lawrence plan. I thought that was really important, and also a lot of recommendations that in terms of incubators or startups or accelerators or having those opportunities for small business, because as I said before, I believe small business it contributes greatly to this town. They're the folks that are part of our civic organizations, are the folks that do all the little things that nobody else notices in this town, and keeps part of the lifeblood of this town. So, and things I think we can also look at as well is how to make sure that a lot of the practices that we enact are sustainable, that that they can function long after we initiate it, because that's important as well. Try to figure out a more concrete plan for what we would like our farmers market to look like, things of that sort. But I think it's a great start, and I would also like us to expand beyond the Lawrence, the downtown master plan as well, to concentrate and look at other aspects of this town. Maybe we need to concentrate and have a plan for 23rd Street or Western Lawrence, where there are so many commercial development buildings that are empty now, and we need to figure out exactly what we're going to do with those as well, or North Lawrence. So I think it's a great start, but I think we can go ahead and improve on it.
Thank you. Lisa?
Thank you. So, one of the things I liked about the downtown plan was that it did talk about density some, but I didn't think it went far enough. I think that we need more density downtown. If we're going to have those retail businesses survive downtown, we've got to have density, we've got to build up. And that's just a fact of life. We've got to get that density downtown. I would like to see, I like the idea, they mentioned about converting a city parking lot into a building for housing as well as mixed use below. I like that idea, with the idea that possibly putting another parking garage in to kind of piggyback with that. I think that's a good idea. But I do think that if we really want that downtown to survive, we have got to get density, we've got to go up.
Thank you. Mako.
I like the downtown master plan. I like that Lawrence really looks at drawing in small minority-owned businesses. I think that that's going to be key in building our downtown identity. I think it mentioned, but didn't really focus on retaining the historical aspect or the historical identity of the surrounding neighborhoods in Lawrence. So I think that that's something that really needs to be preserved, that our citizens really want to see too. We don't want to see our downtown look different than the surrounding communities. I like the measurable goals in the Downtown Lawrence Master Plan, but once again, there are no measurable goals for sustainability. If we're talking about infill and filling in buildable lots, if we're talking about building up, I think if we're talking about more parking garages, we need to think about ways that we can save customers and save our consumers, save business owners money in that process. And so refocusing our efforts on infrastructure that's going to be conservation-minded. Right now, our businesses on Mass Street, they pay high rates for sewage. Utility rates are one of the largest costs for businesses. And I think as city commissioners that we need to look at sustainable aspects of that and how we can lower those costs. And that's going to help with the density in downtown Lawrence.
Thank you. Milton?
Thank you. I think, too, looking at how we can enhance the shopping and the outdoor dining experience is critical for me in that plan. The other area that I thought was great is start talking about the vacancy. So we have the discussion about what should we do to look at the vacancies downtown. And those are some topics that the city commissioners would have to address. The other area is looking at how we can increase BIPOC as far as minority-owned businesses. And I know the chamber is putting aside strategies to help that as well. The other area, to me, and Mark was talking about it, is that it didn't go far enough on environmental and sustainability. I think that we need to be able to look at that and see how we can address that. And particularly, I also would like to see a more comprehensive, robust recycling program, too, with downtown Lawrence. So those are the things that I think were important to me, and things that I saw were good, and things that I think we should add to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Amber?
Yes, so in regards to the downtown plan, several of the candidates up here have discussed several things that I brought up in passing in regards to the incubator space for small businesses, minority BIPOC businesses, and utilizing our downtown space to grow that out. I don't think there's anyone in this room that would not want that. And one of the things that I enjoyed about the plan in regards to economics and opportunity was revisiting the idea of a farmer's market. Lawrence prides itself on its economics, its tourism, and its agritourism. So why not be able to give us a dual-purpose space in a farmer's market that's covered, that will allow for opportunities for continuous cultural engagement, bringing more of that unmistakable identity of Lawrence together by bringing communities together to do activities and so forth. So when you create a space that is multi-use, it drives economics in the space around it, and that's what we want. I've discussed aspects of utilizing and repurposing, retrofitting the old Orange Journal World building to become a city-owned convention center or meeting space. Again, bringing in opportunities for continued economics that could help flourish not just our community, but as well as downtown. And that will branch out to what Bart stated. We know when we say that downtown is the heart of our community, but arteries and veins push out from the heart. And so if that's the case, what we pour into there can happen. One of the areas I will say which I stressed that we didn't stress on, was homelessness and environmental sustainability, but that wasn't the charge of the plan either.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Lisa Larsen. If you could change one thing in our community's zoning or building codes or our long-range plan 2040, what would it be and why?
Just one?
Your top one.
My top one. Wow. That's a big one. I think that one thing we can look at in Plan 2040, and in fact it was the most controversial, I think, from what I heard being on the commission, is the idea of what is a community value. And as builders develop, one of the premises is that if they want to annex or if they want to do more housing, is that they provide some sort of community value to the projects if they want to annex. So I think that was the most controversial, and I think that it does need to be further discussed as to making sure there's a strong definition of what that is. And there's some provided in the Plan 2040, but the concern is that the definition doesn't go far enough. So I would think that that's one thing that I would look at doing, is providing a better definition and finding a way to bring those partners to us to begin some of that development in that Tier 2 and Tier 2 area.
Thank you. Mako.
I think that looking at our zoning laws and our building codes. And I think that really focusing on that mixed-use development is important for Lawrence. I think that addresses a lot of the homeless issues, not just homeless issues, but low-income families or small families moving here and having those options to live and thrive and raise their family in Lawrence. I wish I knew what that looked like, but I think our reviewing of our zoning laws is a great start in looking at how when people build multi-family complexes or even buildings downtown and building apartments on top of their business, all having that same idea of mixed-use development. If you're going to have 6 apartments above a restaurant downtown, then 2 of them can be for low-income families to live downtown. I want to see families like mine walking around downtown. I want to be able to see families like mine be able to live in downtown Lawrence and be able to afford to raise their family downtown. I really think it's important that we need to involve some of the staples of our community, like somehow drawing in, using our zoning codes to draw in a supermarket for downtown Lawrence. These are things that are going to draw those families. These are things going to draw those businesses downtown and want to infill in downtown Lawrence. And I believe that.
Thank you. Milton Scott.
I think what I would be looking at and what is very important is environmental sustainability and efficiency. You know, electric cars are going to be coming, and we did design what it's going to look like downtown, how are they going to charge up, providing those avenues. So looking at how we can retrofit our current buildings downtown and then new development. We talked about that and we put it as a priority for the city and the community. I think this would be a good opportunity for us to look at it and say, hey, this is how we see environmental sustainability in our community going, and be the example. Thank you.
Thank you. Amber Sellers.
So in Plan 2040, there's a couple of aspects that are talked about in regards to housing and the ability for individuals to age in place, to enhance character elements, as well as to provide options for smaller lots. And so when we talk this out, what we don't realize is oftentimes our policy and our expectations don't always align with our zoning. And so when these things are in conflict with each other, you have conversations like we're having right now. And so, you know, I wish there was a magic wand I could wave to say this is what's going to make zoning, and this will mitigate our issues with zoning and growth in our community. It's just not that simple. I mean, this is the work I do on the state level. We're constantly working with partners in regards to regulations and statutes and policy to make sure that they work with each other. And oftentimes what we realize is that when we're in silo, that work is difficult. And so I think what we see here in regards to is there one particular zoning aspect that could mitigate this? Not at all. I think we've all hinted to it on this dais today, is that we do need to do an overview of our planning and development process, our zoning codes, and how we interpret those particular codes in relationship to things such as the 2040 plan and the downtown Lawrence plan, to make sure that they are in concert with each other and that they are highlighting the goals and objectives of such plans.
Thank you. Bart Littlejohn.
I would go ahead and echo what everybody was talking about as well, but it also goes back to what I was originally talking about was, in terms of housing, accessibility, availability, and affordability. And that all directly has to do with zoning and building and codes. And also it has to do with what I talked about earlier, which was collaboration, inviting people into your space, inviting people into the room, inviting businesses, developers, so that they can contribute as well, because honestly, they're the ones putting up the houses. They're the ones that have to deal with it every day. I would hope that they can impart some knowledge that can go ahead and help us develop a better plan, a plan that's more effective, and a plan that works for all of us. So, and to that measure, we might think about also other things that can kind of help us with that intermediary period. Maybe like, as Hugh has alluded to many times and had a great idea a couple years ago, an ombudsman that, would help out small businesses starting up or help out businesses themselves navigating the zoning and code process so that they can go ahead and do that much easier. So they're all like solutions that we can come up with. But more importantly, we just need to go ahead and come together and figure out these things in a collaborative manner.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Makakwa. Due to a critical shortage of infant and toddler child care slots in Douglas County, the Chamber has embraced high-quality early child care and education as a critical two-generation workforce development initiative. Early care and education has also been identified as a top priority of the anti-poverty plank of the Douglas County Community Health Improvement Plan, and it's a strategy identified in the city's recently completed Economic Development Strategic Plan. Do you believe that the city should participate financially in collaborations aimed at providing high-quality, affordable early care and education for working parents? And how else might the city support these efforts? 90 seconds.
I was going to point out that my 3-year-old daughter's right there because I don't have childcare, so I think this is a very important issue. I think that, yes, definitely the city of Lawrence should contribute financially. And the reason why is because there's a lot of mothers who do have these goals and do have ideas of what they want to do. And if childcare is an issue, then they're not going to do those things. We want the best and brightest opportunities for Lawrence. I think that putting in that financial backing for our children could go a long way for our kids. Unless you've dealt with childcare issues, you don't really know how important it is to have your child have the opportunity to be in daycare, to be in an educational institution, to have that hands-on learning at an early age, to free up that time for parents to be able to pursue things that they want to pursue. And I think financial backing by Lawrence says that, yes, we care about our littlest ones as well as our oldest ones. I think that it could go a long way into bringing up the education standards for our children. The studies have shown that as children go into schools earlier, they achieve more. Their intelligence can go up for standard test takings. So I think that financial backing by the city of Lawrence for childcare, partnering with Douglas County on doing this initiative, I think that's one of the most important things that Lawrence should focus on and do.
Thank you. Milton Scott.
I think that the commissioners should be an advocate in encouraging public partnership in this particular area. I too have 2 kids that have grown now. They're 32 and 33. As a single parent, it was often that I had to rely on other individuals. So I know that experience is very important. But I think that we also should go a little further and look at 24/7 because we have moms and dads that work their second and third shift. So those are some things that I think that it would be important that the city look in the budget or look at means or support grants and work with the chamber to look at how we can expand that. And the biggest part is going to be that public-private partnership.
Thank you. Amber Sellers.
I'm going to preface this by saying if you want to hear my TED Talk on child care and early care and education and its impact on economic development, sign up on my website. 90 seconds is not enough. We've heard candidates touch on that a little bit, and this is something that I'm really passionate about. So I know I'm going to go over a little bit. I'm just going to tell you right now, not too much. When it talks about early care and education, it's not just about single moms. It's about single people like myself who work with families. It's mom and dads. It's same-sex relationships. It's family. It's community. So early care and education impacts not only the workforce, being those who are currently working, but also the future workforce. So when you think about it in that perspective, we need our chambers, we need our cities, we need our county, we need our states to help elevate the early care and education field. Because we can talk about wanting child care, but child care providers, whether they're home or they're private center-based, don't make an adequate pay. So we have to put funding behind it in order to ensure that our early care educators are getting livable wages so that they are part of that human infrastructure that allows us to see our children thrive.
Sorry.
I will.
Did I hear that bell? That was a little faint. We'll go to the TED Talk, though. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bart Littlejohn.
So, Hugh, the answer to your question is absolutely. That's a huge part of it, because what that does is, what you're doing is when you invest in kids, is you're investing in the future. You're investing in ways that they can succeed. I mean, it's not necessarily that they have to go to college, or, you know, they can go to places like Peasley, or they can do anything in between. But it's most important that you prepare them for those choices that they have to make down the line. And as Amber said, it's also the surrounding factors as well. What that does is it frees up their parents to go ahead and pursue their interests, to go ahead and do the things they're passionate about. And I know that you know, as well as I know, when you're passionate about something, devote more energy to it, devote more will to it, you want to do it better, you're usually going to be more successful. And that's all we want, because that all flows back to this community. And as well, that contributing to that, and what we can do on the periphery is help them with livable wages. We can help them with transportation. We can help them with those aspects that normally that they would be an encumbrance for them to go ahead and pursue those goals. So, yeah, it's a conversation I definitely want to be a part of.
Thank you. Lisa Larsen.
Thank you. So I think Amber, her description of the child care issues I thought was really, really good, very eloquent. We're definitely out there, and we're seeing it come from the national side too, not just locally being an issue. And I think this has all been highlighted by the COVID situation that we're now seeing, that the mothers, the caretakers, some of them can't go back to work because they've got this child care issue, or it struggles as far as what it costs and the cost of child care. And it's true, we don't, child care workers just don't make a living wage, I mean, at this point in time. And so we need to look at that. Now, what that looks like for the city, as far as their partnership or role in that, I think that's definitely open for discussion. And it needs to be weighed with every other thing that we have to deal with, from the social service side to the other hard asset and infrastructure side. So I am always willing to have that discussion, but to commit to saying the city should be paying for that without knowing what that entire plan is, I can't do that. I need to know what that plan is and have a good, strong public discussion as to what role the city plays in that.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Milton Scott on this one. What do you believe the role of the city is in regards to cultivating existing businesses and attracting new businesses to grow primary jobs? 90 seconds.
I think it's a very important role that we should cultivate that relationship and that partnership, and always have incentives or dialogue so we can be able to look at how we can increase, not only sustain businesses, but attract business to the community, and look at how we can market the community to attract other individuals. Also, it's important that we provide living wage for individuals, and look at, in some cases, their prevailing wages for a specific industry. So it's important that we work together as partners, and we should talk the talk and walk the walk. So we encourage and we support businesses. We should look at incentives and how we can keep businesses in the community, to expand that diversity of businesses, and then attract new businesses as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Amber Sellers.
So here in the state of Kansas, we do have our Kansas Framework for Growth. So as it stands right now, Kansas is 38th in startup and job creation. And so just to take you briefly through kind of the target sectors that the plan looks at is advanced manufacturing, aerospace, distribution, logistics and transportation, food and agriculture, professional and technical services. And so in those pieces, we have manufacturing is huge to our area, and we have an industrial piece to us that we are growing out currently in our city and in our county. So as far as the city's role in that is to ensure that whether we are advocating not only just on a local level but also on a state level, those different incentives and programs that will make outside businesses attractive and draw them to us because of our landscape, of our region, but also to support the work that our chambers are doing and our bigger local technical places such as Peasley Tech are working to elevate the job field in those areas. We do have a blueprint from the state that's telling us these are the things that enhance and elevate what we are already doing well in this state. As a city, we need to look at that in relationship with those community partners to ensure that we are doing that work, whether it's in partnership with funding, partnership in policy, but it is a relationship and understanding whether our tax incentives, our tax programs are working to make sure that we are enhancing or at least supporting the work that our state blueprint has.
Thank you. Bart Littlejohn.
It's that's always a part of the process is trying to figure out ways to get businesses to relocate here or move here and try to retain the ones you have. I would also just mention, I just don't want us to lose fact or overlook the fact that a lot of the times we look at those jobs and those are those $60,000 to $70,000 a year jobs or more. But I also want us to incorporate as well, in which the city commission has recently done and gotten some of those jobs that pay a little bit less than that, because I think a healthy mix is important to this town, because if you are centered on one industry or one aspect of business, crises happen like they did last year, it doesn't leave you very flexible. So, and I know in business flexibility is key. So I think that's truly important, and then also I'm really encouraged by our community partnerships I see going on right now, especially the ones with KU and Haskell, and their ability to go ahead and work with each other and work across those boundaries, because I think that's important. We need to take advantage of every resource that we have in this town, so working together is the best way to do it.
Thank you. Lisa.
So I have a strong belief in the role of government in economic development and working with our community, and that is that the role of government in economic development is to ensure that the infrastructure is in place that will attract those businesses and cultivate existing businesses to thrive and grow. And when I talk about making sure that infrastructure is in place, I don't mean just the hard assets. I don't mean just the streets and the roads. I mean that the partnerships that we form for those who are trying to pull in those businesses. So that's kind of where I'm at with our role, the government's role as a whole, in how we cultivate those new businesses. It's our job to make sure that infrastructure is completely in place that will attract those businesses to come here and to grow here.
Thank you. Maka Kwan.
I think that one of the things that we need to focus on in drawing these businesses to the city of Lawrence is drawing in a broad range of businesses. We're talking about jobs for community members in the city of Lawrence, and that is one of the key areas that affects people being able to live and thrive here is being able to pay for a house, pay for their lives with a good paying job here in Lawrence. And right now there's not enough jobs for people in Lawrence. The jobs opportunities here for people, just the broad range of opportunities is not here. And so we need to realize that when we're drawing in these businesses. Mixed businesses, the high-paying ones, the lower-paying ones. I appreciate the industrial jobs. I know that there's a lot of families who have thrived in working in some of our industrial warehouses here in Lawrence. The food and agriculture, but once again, we need to look at our environmental sustainability aspect. There's a lot of remediation and mitigation dollars that goes into businesses that are environmentally sustainable. And long after they're gone, that's what the City Commission has to deal with in these buildings and spaces where these businesses once were. And so if we think about that on the forefront and drawing these businesses here, let's think about businesses that are going to be cleaner minded, businesses that are going to have that environmental sustainable attitude that I'm pushing for Lawrence to have when they come here, so that long after they're gone, we can draw in other businesses, not have to worry about cleanup costs.
Thank you. Next question. We're going to start at the end again here and come back towards me with Milton. Would you support amending the city's purchasing policies to better prioritize buying local? And what else do you think the city could do or could do better to support local businesses as they recover from the effects of the pandemic? 90 seconds.
I don't think I would go as far as restricting to say buy locally. What I would try to do is look at incentives where and has opportunity to encourage individuals to buy locally, and I think that would be an important avenue. I think the city also, any federal dollars, state dollars that's available out there, we should be tapping into to bring to the community, not only to the chamber, but to downtown Lawrence Association as well. So those are the things that I think is important, is that we provide that vision and strategy, and we work together with our partners, and we work with you all and everyone to be able to say, what can we do to do that? And one of the areas that we didn't talk much about is on transportation. I think we need to look at how we can have some type of comprehensive transportation to get employees to their work sites. So maybe partner with you all or with everyone in the community to look at those different avenues. But as far as saying just buy locally, I think we should still have that freedom to choose where we're going to be able to buy things. But let's give incentives. Let's have special downtown days. Let's have special business days where we can offset some of that cost. Or in some cases, in some communities, they have the time where they don't tax during that time, especially like school time, where individuals and families won't be taxed for school supplies. So things of those natures I would look at.
Thank you. Makakwa.
I think focusing on buying locally is important. If we're talking about growing our own businesses here in Lawrence, I think that should be a message that people can take to heart. But not every family has the opportunity to do that. I agree with Milton. I think that having some of these programs, these sales programs where there's discounts on specific days on close to holidays or school openings, school closing, summer things. Just these past activities down on Mass Street, I was talking to business owners, and they were excited because a lot of people came and they haven't had that kind of business in a long time. And I think that's a great opportunity for our downtown Lawrence, our Mass Street, is having more of these events like this really does actually encourage people to buy locally, whether we say it outright or not. And so I'm getting these businesses together, our small businesses, and having events for City of Lawrence community members. That's what our businesses downtown want to see. They want to see that thriving community coming downtown and celebrating, and that brings businesses to them. That brings customers to them. They're able to talk with people. And I think our sales programs do need to be focused on all members of our community. I know there's a lot of tax dollars that comes from our sales in Lawrence, but we also need to start looking at tax incentives to bring more businesses and opportunities for people in Lawrence. I think that those things go a lot farther than we could imagine, and that's one opportunity that we have.
Thank you. Just want to clarify, we're talking about the city's purchasing policies to better prioritize local spending. Thank you. Lisa Larsen.
Yeah, I think that obviously, to provide some level of assurance that we're trying to pull in local dollar or local purchases, allow companies for the purchasing power of the city. We have looked at, and I believe we have a program that if a bid is within 5%, it's a local company, I think it's 5%, then we have the option of going with that local. And that's where I think the city can play an important role, is to provide that level of cushion for local businesses to be incentivized to actually bid on the jobs. And so I know, and just I'm thinking back on the approvals we've done, usually a lot of times those are the consent agenda, is that we struggle getting local companies to bid on jobs. So that's something that we could look at as to why that is. And I would be definitely open to that. But I know we do have some policy in place for local purchasing. And I would be definitely open to looking at that further to provide some incentive for local companies to get those bids.
Thank you. Bart Littlejohn.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Provide, make sure that we're looking after our local businesses as well. Because as I said before, they contribute greatly to our community. And we want to make sure that we make sure to keep that relationship and that partnership viable for the good of our community. And as well, we could also look at success stories of, how local businesses have been able to sustain themselves and, thrive and even grow a little bit, like the Raven Bookstore, like everybody's seen, like downtown, and how they've been able to create their own niche and do really great things in terms of fighting those giants like Amazon. Learn from them and enable those programs, and as well in terms of our builders and the folks that work with our builders, our unions as well. Make sure that we let them know that we want them to play a part in building and maintaining our community as well. But I think Makapag made a great point. One of the ways that we can help our local businesses to find ways to go ahead and drive folks to those businesses, especially downtown, 23rd Street, North Lawrence, and other areas of town, because people make businesses, and if we can create that sort of density, that would be great for all of us.
Thank you. And Amber Sellers.
So yes, so a little bit to what Lisa was saying in regards. I know the city has had to look at its bidding process, and we want to ensure that we do have an ethical bidding process as it comes to for utilizing local for city resources. And I know not doing so does put us in a little bit of a risk to be accountable to that. And so I would like for us to review our bidding process to ensure its efficacy, but also how it supports local companies in that process. I will say that we do have to be careful with all things. We do need to be careful with our incentives, because I don't want us to utilize incentives to give not just local businesses advantages, but also to put as a disadvantage. It goes both ways. And I don't want those tax incentives of any sort or any type of incentive to lead to any cutting corners. So I think a review of our bidding process and understanding how it impacts our local companies and how they participate in the purchasing process with the city is something that is definitely up for review.
Thank you. Looks like we do have time for an audience question or two. Let's keep these answers to 60 seconds, Julie, if you would, so we can get to a couple of them. Growth of Lawrence over the next 20 years is inevitable. This is the place to be in Kansas. What should we be doing to prepare for that growth? And what is your greatest concern about that growth? And we will start with Makokwa.
I'm excited to think about the growth of Lawrence. Like I said, my family loves Lawrence, and I want to see more families like mine be able to come to Lawrence and raise their families. And I think that we've definitely talked about one of the issues in that, and that's housing here in Lawrence. My campaign team, is a group of community organizers and activists right now, and they are actively fighting for affordable housing in Lawrence. They're trying to work with landlords, they're trying to work with property owners in being able to provide that affordable housing for people. And I think that's a key area that we need to look at. But like everything, that's only part of the cycle. We need livable wages, we need those broad range of businesses here for people to be able to get jobs. But I also think that everybody wants a beautiful environment, a healthy environment, that they wouldn't have to worry about raising their family here and being exposed to a lot of health concerns and as we grow as a city of Lawrence. And so all of those things fit together.
Thank you. Lisa.
Yeah, so growth is inevitable. There's no doubt about that. In fact, I think that the last numbers I recall from Jeff Crick is that we're growing on net about 1,000 people a year. So we either need to get on board with that and address that need for infrastructure for that growth, or I think we're going to really miss out as a community if we don't. So the biggest thing that concerns me, or I don't know if you used the word scared, but it definitely concerns me, is whether or not we can get the density that's needed to pay for the infrastructure that will be required in order to address those growth needs, and also whether we build in such a way that it continues to make our community more sustainable. So.
Thank you. Bart?
It's I would echo what my previous candidates have said. Growth is inevitable, but growth is healthy. Growth is showing that you have a healthy community, that you have people wanting to move here, that you have people that like the place that you establish. So what we need to do is work with it instead of against it, because it's going to happen. So, and then part of that is, as Makapa was saying, making sure that we have that housing for folks, so that when they do move here, that they can afford a place to live, or when companies relocate here, they can have places to house their folks. And also infrastructure, making sure our roads and pipes and bridges and everything are in order to go ahead and house them, as well as our human infrastructure, as Amber has alluded to as well, making sure our workers are well taken care of, as well as their families. But I think we can do that in a collaborative manner, and I'm hoping that we can engage in those conversations, because I think it will be the best for all of us.
Thank you. Amber?
So yes, the relationship with all growth does speak to, thank you, Bart, our human infrastructure piece. It's in relationship with economic development. It's in relationship with housing. We know with our housing, we're not up to par on that, because we don't have a comprehensive plan that speaks to that speaks to 2040, that speaks to what our strategy is on annexation as it relates to Tier 2 and Tier 3 land in our county. And so we're missing, we've known what we've known for this long. We know that we're growing. It's like, how do we grow in a way that we recognize the deficiencies that we've had for more than 6 years, and understanding that what do we need to do to be strategic and innovative in our economic development, so that when we talk about bringing businesses here, we're bringing them here to a community that has a quality housing stock that meets those different economic price points, whether it's retail or it's manufacturer or it's aerospace or bedroom or state employees like me who travel out and through and out of the community.
Thank you. And Milton Scott.
I think it's important, growth is good and excellent. We just need to have a strategic plan so that way we can be able to address it. We also have to remember that 100,000 mark is important, because when we get to that status, we maintain our metropolitan status, and that opens up additional funding that we can receive, not only state but from the federal government. But we also need to be gearing up and doing our public-private partnership. And those are going to be important things as we go along the way, is that we're looking at living wage, we're looking at improving our infrastructure. Those are the things that I think is going to be important. But what that concerns me down the road is that as we look at utility raises, they increase. As we look at the farmland industry, we have to pay $40 million to clean that up particular area. So it takes away from our budget, from our city budget. So we need to look, again, like Rob was talking about, sustainability, and look at the environment. So those are things that I definitely would be a concern to make sure that we address.
Thank you. And final question, we do have time for one more. So, operating a business sandwiched between two of the largest homeless encampments in Lawrence, I have serious concerns about the safety in the area. Many of the individuals camping in the area have such significant issues that affordable housing is not a solution for them. How can we address the influx of individuals to Lawrence that are facing serious drug and mental health issues? This part of the problem is not a housing problem, but a drug and mental health problem. How can we keep Lawrence safe and humanely address these homeless encampment issues? We'll start with Lisa Larsen, 60 seconds.
Yeah, it's definitely a very real issue, not only locally but nationally. And I believe that the city's strength is in assets and providing those potential assets for the need. But our strength is also in pulling in partners to deal with the mental health issues. We are not mental health providers. The city is not. We are not social service providers. That's not our expertise. So I would look to continue to provide the asset aspect, of just like we have with one of the new divisions that we've put together for this budget year, but then make sure we have strong partnerships with our mental health as well as our social services.
Thank you. Bart Littlejohn.
It's I've also seen those around town, and I've worked with the city as well to go ahead and help set up those encampments for folks that are that down on their luck. So, and as Lisa said, I mean, the city isn't in the mental health business, and they do have partners like Bert Nash, but it's also making sure that those partners have the room and resources to succeed. That's also a part of the equation as well. We need to go ahead and do that, because right now, a lot of them are overworked, underfunded, and undersupported. So the best way we can help that is to help them, and then in part we can go ahead and help those folks. Because honestly, if we do that, once we do that, those folks can then transition into housing and doing things that they want to do in the community that help support the community. So.
Thank you. Amber?
So yes, our the issue of homelessness in our downtown, again, to what Lisa was saying, is not a catch-all, and it is, to the author of the question, exceeds affordable housing. It does speak to behavioral health and substance abuse. And then, yes, the city should be an asset, not just in funding, and also being a platform to support our community partners who are doing this work. But we can definitely be a better advocate to what Bart was saying, to the funding, so that we can create a more sustainable model. What we're dealing with homelessness in Lawrence is not an anomaly. We're seeing it in all of our metropolitan cities in the state of Kansas and beyond. It's going to take a strategic, long-term, sustainable plan to get it there. Built to Zero is a start, but we do need a more strategic plan on what that looks like in relationship with our downtown and with our community as a whole.
Thank you. Milton Scott.
This is one of the areas that I have a lot of experience in. I'm probably the only candidate that actually administered housing for the chronically homeless individuals with dual diagnosis of mental illness and substance abuse. There's opportunities, and the Housing Authority currently is doing that, is working with private landlords and developing cooperative housing for those individuals to get them back on their feet, to provide that support for them, and get them to mainstream services, and then transition them into other type of housing, from transitional to permanent housing. So we can do more of that. We are, James Dunn is one of the landlords in the town that we are able to do those activities. If we can encourage other landlords, then we can be able to assist individuals and get them back on their feet, and then receiving the services that they need. So there's not a strategic plan that you need for it. It's basically a plan to step forward, getting the private and public together on these partnerships and developing some housing opportunities for individuals.
Thank you. Makakwa.
I think that Lisa made a good point. City Commission government is not the business of mental health experts or anything of the sort. However, we do have our lived experience that can inform our policy making. And definitely I have that lived experience, having lived homeless in Lawrence. But there are other aspects of homelessness. There are the mental health and the addiction aspect. And if we better understand addiction and mental health, then we understand where those resources need to go directly. I think we need advocates in Lawrence. Accessing the resources in Lawrence can be daunting on its own. People don't even want to participate in trying to get resources because of the long process, the qualifications, the attitude of whether they qualify or don't, and those are ways that we need advocates to walk these people through these processes. A friend of mine mentioned the other day opening up the Parks and Rec building, a community building for a homeless shelter during the winter for the people who are sleeping out in the streets and not having to brave the cold. That's one of the ways that we can help the county jail not fill up from these people that just needing a place to stay for the night.
Thank you. Okay, so we are down to closing remarks. Sorry, folks, we're just going to go maybe 5 minutes over now. And we will start in the opposite direction of opening remarks with Milton Scott. 60 seconds, please.
Thank you. I think this is an opportunity I wanted to bring your attention to the candidates. This is one of the few rare times that Lawrence has had 4 minority individuals running for city commission. So I do appreciate their experience and exposure that they can bring to the table. It's been a great enjoyment walking the community and talking to individuals, and I think I would be able to bring my life experience and my professional experience to the position. I've served as president of the League of Women Voters of Lawrence Douglas County in the past. I also served as chair of my trustee ministry at 9th Street Missionary Baptist Church, and as well as the site council at Free State and Sunset, and past treasurer of Justice Matters. All of this I was doing to learn more about the community and to be engaged so I can give back to the community. So I do think that I have a wealth of experience that I can bring, and I ask for your support on November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you. Akokwa Jones.
I'm excited about running for city commission. I think that whoever the city of Lawrence decides to vote for, they're going to get great commissioners from this group, and I'm excited to be a part of that. When you're thinking of voting for city commission, think about the voices that you want in the room that are advocating for people, that are advocating for your interests, and that's how you should vote. You should vote on people that are going to speak to what you care about and what you think. Having me in that room brings a lot of voices into those conversations, not just a BIPOC woman, but as a mother, as a low-income family member, as someone who's had to access community resources in Lawrence, somebody who's been in the education system. And all of these voices I bring to the table in speaking to issues that are at right in our faces. And a lot of times, a lot of these voices that I bring are my personal lived experience, backed and informed by my education. And so it's not just a lived experience, but something that I have brought into my education, have learned to try to address in policy. So thank you.
Thank you. Lisa Larsen.
So thank you. I want to thank the chamber once again, as well as I want to congratulate my fellow candidates here that we are at the end of the line on these forums. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. There's a lot of them this year, more than I can remember, for sure. So I'm just going to ask a few questions. If you believe that my experience as a commissioner, as well as the mayor of Lawrence, is important to this, to the city commission, and that my 30 years experience as an environmental geologist working in remediation and investigations, if that's important to ensuring that we navigate that $40 million farmland situation, and also that we build in our community for climate change, then I ask for your vote. If you believe that my experience in small business is where I have a strong understanding of budgets, contracts, both federal and state, and also what it takes to make payroll every week, then I really ask for your vote. If you think that my experience in mediation is important in bringing our community together, then I ask for your vote. If any or all these qualities are important to you, I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Bart Littlejohn.
Yeah, it's the end of the road, and I really enjoyed this journey with you guys. You guys have been really cool. It's really nice to go ahead and meet you, and I think the best of all of you, and wish us all the best of luck. Yeah, I think small businesses are the lifeblood of our town. I've said it before. They help this city go, and we need to do everything we can to go ahead and help them out, as well as help other businesses relocate here, as well as help the people that work in those small businesses and the people surrounding those small businesses, because they also contribute greatly to this town. Now, I can't profess that I know everything. I do the best by learning, so I count on others to go ahead and contribute and let me know exactly where I'm missing in the gaps, and that's where all of you come in. So I want all of you to play a part in this, and I want to collaborate as much as I can with who I can and try to bring as many people to the table. In that way, I ask for all of your vote starting October 13th through November 2nd for the upcoming election. I think that Lawrence is a great town. I think it's our town, and I think in order to make Lawrence what we want it to be, we need to make it good for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Amber Sellers.
1,678 days doors ago, as I started this process. 1,678 doors. And in those 1,678 doors, I've talked to 1,678 different Lawrencians, telling me about their story, me sharing my story with them, building community, engaging, educating, empowering, and wanting to embolden my community to know that I am someone who is not only has the acumen, but has the desire to bring our community together. We have a huge, there is transformational change that is in our midst. And we need transformational action, and we need transformational leaders to do that. And I believe that I'm one of those individuals. And I truly believe that those 1,678 Laurentians that I talked to believe that as well. This is going to be difficult work. I'm built for that difficult work, and I know what it takes.
Thank you. That'll conclude the forum for today. I want to thank our sponsors again, Intrust Bank, Cherry Hills Properties. We really appreciate your partnership, and a special thanks again to all of the candidates for joining us.